September the 18th. I think I already said, but it's Friday, September the 18th. Thank God it's Friday. Happy Friday. I hope all of you are really getting a great start to your weekend. Of course, this is your host, Ellen Love, for the Park and Rashad Show. And today I could not help but bring a couple of topics to the forefront. As you know, it's been a very heavy news week. First of all, with the Republican presidential debates, where it looks like there's a mixed bag of tricks, and some people are pretty much split about who they think won that particular first round. It's early yet, so we have a lot of time left before we really have to make any real decisions. For those of you out there who are Republicans, Democrats, liberals, nonpartisan, independent, whatever you may happen to be, this is a very exciting time for elections and for political anything, really. So let's go ahead and get into what this is all about. This is going to kind of be a short and sweet, just a quick blurb, just a commentary on the last program that was on A&E just the other evening. Some of you may have watched, some of you may have not. I'd love to hear your take on what you thought about the women. The actual production, A&E, aired last night, entitled Cosby, The Women Speak. Essentially, as we all know, this has been a really, really big news story, and it's kind of gathered a lot of steam, and then it kind of seemed to die down. But here it is being brought back around. And I guess it's really anyone's actual personal take on whether or not these ladies had the right to voice their opinions about what allegedly happened between them and Bill Cosby, who has obviously always been known as Dr. Cliff Huxtable of the Cosbys, America's favorite dad, yada freaking yada. So obviously this guy was someone who had a lot of prowess within the industry. Not only was Cosby one of the first black men to ever have his own sitcom called I Spy with Robert Culp, he was also someone who brought a perspective of black America, middle class, upper middle class life, where he and his perfect lawyer wife, played obviously by Felicia Rashad, who's actually come to his defense in this case. He made everyone realize that this was a different avenue and aspect of black life, unlike what had been shown previously with sitcoms like The Good Times. Although what's happening kind of fits into the middle class, I mean, it really doesn't to some extent, because it was actually a household led by a single mother. But at the same time, there was a middle class perspective there, whereas with the Evans on Good Times, it was definitely a lower class perspective of the socioeconomic groupings. However, Cosby changed that. He made a lot of people think about the way black Americans live, and that they weren't just this one thing, that it wasn't just about the quote-unquote ghetto or urban living or a lifestyle where a lot of children were growing up in a single-parent household, most often led by a female. So it was very refreshing. A lot of people love the sitcom to this day. They still enjoy watching the reruns. They're people that grew up with this. They went to school, they were in college, or they were in high school at the time, or even they were in elementary school, and they look upon the Cosbys as a fun part of their childhood. Naturally, Cosby being accused of what he was accused kind of basically tarnished his image. Naturally, you're going to have diehards, you're going to have people who are always going to be in a person's corner if that is the person they have chosen to defend and support. And that's a great thing. As we have all known from watching the story as it unfolded, Cosby does have his supporters. He also has those people that are unwilling to either forgive or forget and are really eagerly waiting to vilify him, want to see him have his day in court. And of course, we're speaking about a very serious allegations, sexual allegations, being brought by more than 50 women, so including the illustrious Beverly Johnson. So when she actually put her hat in the ring and said that she had had her own encounter with him, she kind of brought the story a little bit more credence, shall we say, a little bit more cachet. So at that point, there was more media coverage, there was more attention and more in-depth focus, because you have this lady who was so successful in her own modeling career and had so many firsts as a Black American model and actress, that Johnson is certainly not someone who would be trying to make accusations for a payday. Fortunately, Johnson has been someone who's achieved in her career and more than likely is well off financially. Now, the other ladies, where there's one individual, I'm not going to name any names today because I don't think that that's fair to any one of those women. They've had enough. They have so much negativity coming at them from so many different directions. They're being slut shamed. They're being victim shamed. They're just being pretty much raked over the coals by those who are staunch supporters of Cosby and his legacy as an entertainer and a comedian who has just had such phenomenal success in Hollywood, in a world where it's very rare for people to see those kind of high-level accomplishments for so many decades as Cosby has. So that's understandable. At the same time, it's not necessary, even if you want to support someone, to knock the other person that may be considered that person's foe, that person's arch rival, what have you. These are women that have lives, they have families, they have friends that love them. So I think that the respect should be accorded to these ladies as far as whether or not their stories, their allegations of sexual abuse, being drugged, being inappropriately fondled in hotel rooms or wherever, those are stories that are obviously, when you look at it on the surface, are completely horrible to even think about, let alone to know someone. And so many people are alleging that this has happened to them, that they were taken advantage of by Cosby. It is probably more important to look at the offenses or the alleged offense than to focus on who was actually the offender. Even though Cosby is so famous, it's difficult for people to separate the two. Truthfully speaking, it's one of those situations, it's difficult to prove. Many of these ladies were very young. They were naive, perhaps. They were trusting. Cosby had a name. He had a following even at that point. As far back as the 60s and 70s, he had success in the films when he did these series of films with Sidney Poitier. So obviously, Cosby was already not at the level he actually arrived at after doing the Cosby sitcom, obviously. But he was still someone who had an amazing career and definitely had authority as a person who was respected in the Hollywood circles. So essentially, it is very difficult to contemplate anything apart from Cosby because his largesse is just so enormous. Therefore, we can get caught up in his fame and the notoriety, but we can also allow that sometimes can be such a major distractor for people that are not looking at the facts that are on the table or looking at the elements of the stories that these alleged victims of Cosby have brought to our attention. A&E did a phenomenal job, I thought. That's my own personal opinion. Just wanted to know what you may have thought if you had a chance to actually watch. Whether or not it was too over the top, I thought it was tastefully done. I didn't see any reason why it should be viewed as negatively as some have seen. They think people should just go away and disappear. But apparently, if one has never known known rape or drugs, being drugged and then being raped on the influence, or date rape, which is very common, unfortunately. Perhaps it is very difficult for those people to separate and just to see these women as people that truly seem to believe that they were taken advantage of, that they were sexually exploited, and that they were essentially victims of a sexual predator. I mean, because what can one think when you look at these stories and you listen to these women, and some of them are in tears as they retell their episodes that they had with Cosby. So it's just difficult to really separate that, and it's very sad to think that so many people seemingly are so quick to rush to judgment and label these women the horrible things that I have seen them being labeled all over the internet, on the airwaves, and everywhere, really, even in private conversations, coffee houses, restaurants, everywhere, people's living rooms. So it's just unfortunate that there's a need to call names and belittle people that are obviously in distress, truly believe something has happened to them that is not acceptable, and that they have experienced a sexual crimes. I mean, because literally this is criminal activity. If someone takes a drug or whatever and puts it in someone's drink or food, what have you, and then takes advantage of that poor person who is totally not even remotely aware of what's going on, and not truly voluntarily, willingly participating in the sexual activity, that is obviously a crime. Okay, so truthfully speaking, I would say personally that my heart goes out to anyone who's ever been a victim of a sexual crime of any nature. I just feel terrible if these women really were abused by Cosby. Frankly speaking, it doesn't matter if it's Cosby or if it's just a guy next door, because the fact of the matter is, being sexually violated is one of the worst things that can happen to anyone, and it's absolutely difficult to overcome. So when people are making comments that these women need to get over it and move on, if they're just looking for a payday, I just don't find it even remotely believable that these women would take time out of their lives. Some of these ladies are older than 50, 60 years old, to take valuable time, time is precious, away from their families and loved ones, to tell lies about something that happened to them decades ago in many cases. If that is true, well, shame on them. Because ultimately, no one really knows what happened unless you were there. You really just do not know. And some people are so quick to want to believe the worst about people and think that these people would make this kind of horrible atrocities up. Personally, I just cannot see anyone making something so horrific up. The stories that those ladies told them on the A&E special, which I would recommend to anyone just to watch it, just to see what they have to say. If you are even skeptical, this may change your mind about the allegations. True, nothing has been proven. Everything is just kind of out there right now. It's just kind of up for grabs. The statute of limitations has passed. So what can really be said here? It's just his word against their words. And there's a lot of people on that list. Johnson's just one of many. Janice Dickinson, another supermodel, essentially also said she had her own run-in with Cosby. Even it's hard to believe, Kathy Lee Gifford offered some information. Obviously, her situation involved something about he may have made a pass at her. It wasn't exactly as extreme as some of the cases that these other women are sharing that allegedly occurred. But at the same time, Gifford did have a story to share as well. So these are some really very notable people in the entertainment industry. And of course, Gifford is another lady who is very financially well off. So what could she gain from saying anything adverse about Cosby, except to just own her truth and tell her story? I'd like to thank you so much for joining me. I really hope to hear and feedback from you, your comments, what you may have thought if you did actually watch Cosby, The Women Speak on A&E. Even if you did not watch, what you really just think about the story that just seems to be never ending. It's very sad that we live in a day and age when these kind of things happen or are continuing to happen. The truth of the matter is, if this truly did occur, Cosby is just one of many. Allegedly, we don't really know. I'm just going to keep saying these are assault allegations, these sexual assault allegations. This has not been proven. However, it's very clear that these ladies believe that this happened to them at the hands of Bill Cosby. So I'd like to thank you again for listening in to me, and I just really do hope that one day the truth will be revealed. And for anyone who has suffered any form of sexual abuse, whether at the hands of your boyfriend, someone you don't know, or a complete random stranger, or a guy that your friend introduced you to on a college campus, I truly hope that you will get help, that you will be believed when you share your story, and that you will get the support that it is definitely necessary to get through such a horrific nightmare. No one should ever have to endure or have such an encounter where they are being violated by another. As always, this is Ellen Love, your host for the Parker Michant Show. I'd like to wish all of you love, more love, and that you take time to enjoy each day. Live it as if it's your last one. And never, ever stop telling those people in your lives that matter just how much they matter to you. Thank you. Take care. Have a wonderful weekend. And on another note, a brighter note, I'd like to actually thank you so much for tuning in. It's absolutely something I appreciate greatly. And as we continue to bring topics to you, we hope to reach a place where you will always come here and find something that is relevant, refreshing, enlightening, and most likely, and more than anything else, positive. I will, of course, be continuing the hottest hit list for fashion 2015 for women and also guys that have something for you too. So please do stay tuned. Take care. Love you.